The wind was cold on the alien world. The sky was not blue like Earth, but a pale green, with thin white clouds stretching like broken glass. A human stood alone near the edge of the forest, his boots sinking into soft red soil. His name was Daniel. A wanderer, a traveler far from home. He was only there to study plants and minerals, to send data back to the station, nothing more. But fate had other plans. Daniel heard it before he saw it. The sound of running feet, desperate, fast, stumbling. He turned his head, and what he saw froze his breath. An alien girl, small and thin, with glowing marks on her skin and wide silver eyes. She was crying, her face wet with tears. She came running straight at him, her voice broken with fear. Without a word, she hid behind him, pressing her body against his back like he was her last shield. Daniel raised his hands slowly, confused. He looked into the trees and saw shadows moving. Figures were chasing her, tall and armored, their eyes burning like coals in the dark. They stopped when they saw Daniel. Their steps faltered, their heads tilted. They whispered to each other in a language he did not understand. But one word slipped clear through their tongues. A word that made the forest colder, they said. Human. And even the way they said it sounded like fear. Daniel did not move. He could feel the girl's shaking hands clutching the fabric of his jacket. She was trembling so hard he thought she might collapse. Her eyes looked at him from the side, full of terror, begging without words. Daniel had seen fear before, but never this deep. Whatever she was running from, it was no simple danger. It was death itself. The figures in the trees stepped forward slowly. Their armor gleamed with strange symbols. Their weapons glowed with light, humming with deadly power. But they did not rush, they did not attack. They stared at Daniel as if measuring something, as if asking themselves a silent question. Why would this alien child hide behind a human? Why was a human here at all? Daniel's voice was steady when he spoke, though his heart was pounding. Who are you? He asked, his voice cutting through the silence. The warriors did not answer. They looked at each other, and then one hissed in anger. They vanished back into the shadows as fast as they had appeared. The forest swallowed them, only silence remained. The girl's hand slipped from Daniel's jacket. She fell to her knees, still shaking, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. Daniel knelt down, trying to meet her eyes. Hey, you're safe now, he said gently. She looked at him but said nothing. Her lips trembled. Her throat moved as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. Instead, she raised her hand and pointed at her own neck. Daniel frowned, confused, and then he saw it. Around her neck was a thin metal collar. It glowed faintly with a blue light, symbols etched deep into its surface. Her fingers tapped against it over and over. Daniel understood. She could not speak. The collar silenced her. For a long moment, he did not know what to do. He was just a man, a scientist, not a soldier. But the girl's eyes broke him. There was so much pain in them, so much desperation. She was not asking for food or water. She was asking for protection. Protection from something too big for her. And now it seemed too big for him as well. Daniel looked back toward the forest. The shadows were gone, but he knew they would return. The way they looked at him was not the way enemies look at prey. It was the way predators look at a rival. And that made his blood run cold. The girl touched his arm. Her hand was small, cold, trembling. She tried to draw something in the dirt with her finger. A circle, then a mark inside it. Daniel leaned closer. It looked like a symbol, old and strange, but then his heart skipped a beat. Because he recognized it, he had seen it once before, deep inside an old human archive. It was a symbol from Earth's ancient myths. Daniel's mouth went dry. What was a symbol from human history doing on the skin of an alien child? Why did her enemies fear him? Why did she trust him? The questions stacked higher and higher, and none of them had answers. The girl wiped her tears and clutched his sleeve. Her silver eyes pleaded with him. She pointed at the sky. Daniel followed her finger. At first he saw nothing, only the pale green clouds drifting slowly. But then he heard it, a low rumble, the sound of something huge. The air trembled, the ground shook. And above the trees, cutting through the clouds, a massive alien warship appeared. It was not just a ship. It was a beast of steel and light, dark and glowing at the same time. Its shadow spread across the land like nightfall. The girl grabbed Daniel's arm tighter, almost digging her nails into his skin. Her eyes filled with fresh tears, and Daniel understood without words. The hunters were not done, they were only just beginning. The warship moved slowly, searching, scanning. Its lights burned down upon the forest. The girl pressed her face against Daniel's arm, hiding. Daniel's mind raced. He was one man, stranded on an alien world. But for some reason, an alien child had chosen him as her protector, and now an empire seemed ready to destroy everything to get her back. The silence of the forest was broken by the sound of engines roaring above. The ship released smaller crafts, black shapes descending through the clouds. The girl whimpered, hiding her face. Daniel took a deep breath, his hands shook, but his resolve grew stronger. He didn't understand the symbol or the fear, or why they whispered his name like a curse, but one thing he did understand. This girl needed him, and he would not step aside. The first chase was over. The real hunt was about to begin. The forest was no longer silent. Engines screamed in the sky, breaking the calm into shards. Daniel pulled the alien girl close, his body shielding her. He could feel her tiny frame trembling against him, every shiver like a drumbeat of fear. Above, black ships descended like hawks, their wings cutting the clouds, their lights searching the trees. The ground shook when the first one landed, spraying dirt and leaves into the air. Daniel's heart raced. He was no soldier, no hero, just a human on the wrong planet at the wrong time. And yet in that moment he knew, if he ran, she would die. If he stayed, maybe they both would. But maybe not maybe, just maybe. Humans still had a chance. The girl tugged at his sleeve, pulling him toward the deeper woods. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Desperate, pleading. Daniel nodded and followed. They ran together, her bare feet light, his boots heavy. Branches whipped his face. Roots grabbed at his ankles. Every breath was fire in his lungs. But he did not stop. Behind them, alien voices rose, sharp and metallic, calling commands. The hunters were coming. They ran until Daniel thought his chest might split. And then the girl pulled him into a hollow beneath an ancient tree. It was dark inside, damp, the air heavy with the smell of soil. They crouched low, both gasping. The girl pressed her glowing hand against her lips, begging him for silence. Daniel listened, his ears straining. Footsteps echoed through the forest. Slow, deliberate, the hunters were close. So close he could hear the hum of their weapons. He held his breath, his heart hammering so loud he feared they would hear it. A shadow moved past the hollow. One of the hunters paused, turning its head, scanning the ground. The light from its weapon flickered, brightening the soil. The girl pressed tighter against Daniel, her body shaking like a leaf in storm winds. The alien warrior took one step closer. Daniel's hand closed around a rock, his knuckles white. If the thing found them, he would fight. He didn't know how, but he would fight. The hunter tilted its head. It whispered again, one word, human, and then it moved away. Leaving silence behind, Daniel exhaled slowly, his whole body weak with relief. The girl touched his arm again, her hand glowing faintly. She began to trace more symbols on the dirt floor. Circles, lines, shapes he did not understand. Daniel tried to follow, but his mind was still racing. Then she pointed at the mark on her own skin, that strange glowing symbol that had stunned him before. Daniel stared at it. It looked even clearer now, brighter, alive almost. And with a jolt he remembered, it was not just a mark. It was a symbol carved into ancient human temples, a sign of protection, a myth older than any empire. What was it doing here, burned into the flesh of an alien child? The girl's eyes locked onto his. Her lips moved soundlessly. She wanted him to know something, to understand, but before he could, a blast shook the ground. The hunters were firing, clearing the forest, driving them out. Daniel grabbed her hand, pulling her from the hollow. They ran again, weaving through trees, their breath ragged. The forest lit up with red light as fire rained down. Leaves burned, smoke filled the air. The warship above groaned like a beast waking, sending down beams of light searching for them. Daniel stumbled but pushed forward. The girl's grip was strong despite her small frame. It was as if she knew exactly where to go. She led him through paths so narrow only children could slip. She slid beneath roots, darted through cracks in stone. Daniel followed, bruised, scraped, lungs burning, but he did not let go. He would not let go. They came to a clearing. A small pool of water shimmered in the pale green light of the sky. The girl stopped, kneeling by the pool. She touched the surface and the water glowed. Symbols appeared across it, glowing like fireflies. Daniel stared in shock. The same symbol that marked her skin appeared on the water's surface. It pulsed, alive, answering her touch. Daniel whispered, "What are you?" But of course she could not answer. Her eyes filled with sorrow. She tapped her collar again. Her silence was a prison. Another blast shook the ground. Closer this time. Daniel turned. The hunters were entering the clearing, their weapons raised. He stepped in front of the girl without thinking. His arms wide, the aliens froze. They stared at him, their eyes wide behind their helmets. One whispered again, human, but this time, it was not fear alone, it was something else, recognition. The leader of the hunters stepped forward. Its armor was heavier, its weapon brighter. Its voice was deep, rumbling. "Give her to us," it growled. "She does not belong with you." Daniel's jaw tightened. He didn't answer. The girl clutched his hand tighter. Hiding behind him, the hunter's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand what she is," it hissed. "She is not a child, she is a key, a living key. And she will burn us all." Daniel's blood went cold. A key to what? The alien raised its weapon, but it did not fire. It was waiting for Daniel to move aside, to surrender her. But Daniel did not move. He stood his ground, his body trembling but unbroken. He would not hand her over, not now, not ever. The girl's glowing mark flared brighter. The hunters recoiled, hissing. The symbol was alive, reacting to her fear. Daniel felt the heat of it even through the air. And then deep in his chest he felt something else. Something answering the glow. Something human. As if the mark was not only hers, as if it was his too. The hunters stepped back, their weapons shaking. The leader snarled, frustrated. "This is not finished," it said, and then signaled to the others. They vanished into the trees again, their shadows melting into the smoke. The clearing grew silent except for the faint ripple of the glowing pool. Daniel's chest heaved, his mind spun with questions. Why were they afraid? What was the mark? Why did it answer to him, and why, above all, did this alien child trust him more than anyone else in the galaxy? He looked at the girl. Her silver eyes shone in the dim light, full of tears but also hope. She was silent, but her silence spoke louder than words. She was saying, "Please don't leave me." And Daniel knew he wouldn't, not now, not ever. The pool shimmered again as if calling. The girl reached out and touched his hand, guiding him toward it. Daniel stared into the glowing water, and for the first time he felt it. A pull, a connection. Like the mark on her skin was not only hers, but his destiny too. The warship roared above, searching, angry. The forest shook. The hunt was not over, but something had changed. The hunters feared her, they feared him, and now Daniel understood only one truth. The girl was not just running for her life. She was carrying the fate of worlds, and somehow he was now a part of it. The human stood in the empty street, the alien girl gripping his arm, her eyes wide with fear. The silence was broken by a sound, low, heavy, like thunder rolling closer. But it was not thunder, it was engines. Engines too loud, too sharp, coming from above. He looked up and saw the dark shapes in the night sky. Ships that were not human, moving slowly but with purpose, their lights cutting the clouds like knives. The girl shook her head fast, whispering in her strange voice. Pulling him away from the open street, he followed her, his steps quick. His heart racing, she knew the way. Darting through narrow paths, her small form slipping between shadows, he kept close, shielding her with his body when the ship's lights searched the ground. The beams passed close, too close, and he could almost feel the heat on his back. But somehow they were not seen. They reached the old train station at the edge of the city. Broken glass on the ground, rust covering every rail. The girl hid behind a fallen beam, her chest rising fast. He crouched beside her, listening. The ships hovered now, searching, waiting, like predators in the night. The girl raised her hands, making strange signs. He realized she was trying to explain. Her hands moved like waves, her fingers drawing pictures in the air. She touched her chest, then pointed at the sky, then placed her hand over his chest, and tears filled her eyes. He could not understand her words, but he felt the meaning. She was hunted, and now, by standing with her, he was hunted too. The ground shook as one of the ships landed nearby, the metal legs slamming down like the steps of a giant. The air burned with the heat of engines, the smell of smoke filling his lungs. The girl clutched his arm tighter, refusing to let go. Her small frame trembled, but her grip was iron. He looked into her eyes and saw something strange. Hope. Not just fear, as if she believed he could protect her. Though he had no weapon, no plan, nothing but his will to stand. The sound of heavy steps grew closer. Figures in black armor moved between the ruins, their eyes glowing red through their helmets. They carried weapons not of this world, glowing, alive, humming with deadly power. The human pulled the girl closer, hiding her under the broken beam as the soldiers spread out. Searching, one of the soldiers stopped near them, scanning with the device. The glow passed over the rubble, closer, closer. The girl buried her face against the human's chest, her tears wetting his shirt. The soldier turned, raising the device higher, the glow now right above them. The human held his breath, ready to move, ready to fight with his bare hands if he had to. The soldier paused, looked around, then stepped away. Joining the others, the glow faded, and the soldiers moved further into the station. For now, they were safe. The girl looked up at him, her eyes shining. She whispered something in her alien tongue, soft, full of trust. He did not know her words, but he knew her meaning. She believed in him, and in that moment he made a silent promise. He would not let them take her, not while he still breathed. But the sound in the distance told him the danger was not over. More ships were coming, more soldiers, and he realized with a chill, they were not just searching for her, they were searching for him too. The night was no longer safe. The hunt had truly begun. The night stretched on, but the human felt it was closing around him. The alien girl stayed close, holding his sleeve as if letting go would mean death. Every sound in the broken station echoed like a warning. Every shadow seemed alive. He listened to the distant hum of the ships, the heavy boots of soldiers searching, moving closer with every passing minute. The girl pointed toward a narrow tunnel under the old tracks. Her eyes told him what her mouth could not: follow me. He nodded and slid into the darkness with her. The tunnel was cold, wet, the walls shaking with the sound of engines above. They crawled, dirt on their hands, the echo of their breath loud in the tight space. At the end of the tunnel, they reached a hidden chamber. Inside were markings on the stone, lines and circles glowing faintly, symbols not made by humans. The girl touched them gently, and the glow grew brighter. The air shifted, warmer now, alive. The human stared in shock. This place was not just a ruin. It was something more, something ancient. The girl placed her small hand on her chest, then pointed at the glowing wall. Her eyes begged him to understand. He shook his head, confused. But then he realized this was her sanctuary, a place left behind by her kind, and maybe a place of power. But the peace lasted only moments. A blast shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. The soldiers had found the tunnel. The sound of their voices, sharp and cold, echoed closer. The girl gasped, fear in her every movement. The human grabbed her hand, pulling her to the far side of the chamber. There was no exit, no second tunnel, just stone and glowing symbols. He pressed against the wall, searching, hoping for a door, a crack, anything. The soldiers' footsteps were louder now, the tunnel vibrating with their march. The girl stepped forward, touching both palms to the glowing wall. Her body trembled, her eyes shut tight. The symbols lit brighter, filling the chamber with strange light. Her voice, soft and broken, spoke words the human did not understand, but the sound was full of pain, full of hope. The stone began to shift slowly, like it was alive. The human stared as a hidden passage opened. The girl turned, grabbing his arm, pulling him through just as the first soldier entered the chamber. They ran down the hidden path, the light closing behind them. A shout rang out, weapons fired, the air burning, but the door sealed shut. For now they were safe again. The tunnel was darker than night, yet the walls glowed faintly as they moved deeper. The girl's steps slowed, her strength fading. The human noticed her breathing, sharp, weak, and her face pale. She stumbled, nearly falling. He caught her in his arms, and that was when he saw it. Burn marks on her side, glowing faint blue. She had been hurt before she even reached him. The human's chest tightened. He carried her as she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. Her eyes begged him not to stop, not to give up. And even though his arms ached, his body heavy, he walked. He walked deeper into the unknown with her in his arms. Behind them, the sound of pounding metal grew louder. The soldiers were not giving up. The hunt was not over. And now, with her wounds revealed, the truth cut deeper. The girl was running out of time. The human whispered to her, though she could not understand his words, "I'll protect you, no matter what." Her small hand gripped his shirt weakly, as if to say she believed him. But in the silence, as the walls closed in, he felt a question grow inside him. Why me? Out of all the humans in this city, why did she run to me? The answer, he feared, would change everything. The tunnel stretched on, cold and endless. The human carried the alien girl in his arms, her body light but heavy with fear and pain. Her breaths came shallow, each one like it might be her last. The glowing marks on her wound flickered. Sometimes dim, sometimes sharp like fire under her skin. He tightened his hold, whispering to her even though he knew she could not understand. "Stay with me, don't give up, I'll get you out." The walls of the tunnel shifted, glowing symbols like stars around them. It felt like walking inside a living dream. A place not meant for human feet, he kept moving. But the sound of metal boots and shouts behind them grew closer. The soldiers had not stopped, their rage echoing through the stone. The girl stirred weakly, her eyes opening. Shining faint in the glow, she raised her trembling hand and pointed forward. Deeper into the dark, the human followed, heart pounding. At last, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling soared high, covered in shining veins of blue light. Strange machines, broken and old, stood like giants frozen in time. At the center was a stone platform, circles carved into it. Glowing faint as they stepped closer, the girl whispered something, her voice like a song breaking apart. The human laid her gently on the platform, his hands shaking as he looked at her wound. It was spreading, the glowing burn moving across her side, crawling like fire through her veins. He looked around, desperate. "Tell me what to do," he begged, even though she could not understand, but her eyes met his, clear and filled with something more than fear. Something like trust, like she knew he could help. She took his hand with her small, weak fingers slowly. She guided it to the glowing circle on the platform. Pressing his palm down, the stone burned hot under his skin. Light shot through the carvings. Spreading across the chamber, the machines groaned. Alive for the first time in ages, the air filled with power buzzing, shaking the ground beneath them. The girl's breathing slowed. Her eyes closing, but she smiled faintly. The human shouted her name, though he did not know it. "No, stay awake, don't go, stay with me." The light wrapped around his arm. Crawling into his veins, it hurt, a fire tearing through him. Burning his chest, he fell to his knees, gripping the platform, his body shaking. Visions flashed in his mind, cities not human, skies filled with alien ships. And in those visions he saw her, not just now, but before, standing beside people who looked like her, hiding, running, always hunted, and then he saw himself, not in the past, but in the visions of her memory. He was there, always there, standing as protector. A shadow she trusted, he gasped, pulling his hand away, but the connection was made. Now he understood. She had not chosen him by chance. Her people had left memories, codes, something inside this place, and somehow it was tied to him. Maybe his blood, maybe his family, maybe something far older. The girl's hand fell weakly to her side, her glow dimming. He panicked, grabbing her shoulders. "No, don't leave me. You hear me?" The machines roared louder, light blasting through the chamber like lightning, and suddenly the wound on her side flickered. The blue fire slowed, held back by the strange energy from the platform. Her eyes opened slightly, tears shining as she looked at him. He saw gratitude there, but also fear. Fear of what he had just unlocked before he could speak. An explosion rocked the chamber. Stone rained from the ceiling. The soldiers had forced their way in. Their leader, tall and armored, marched forward, voice like thunder. "There! The lost one, hand her over." The human stood, placing himself between the girl and the soldiers. He had no weapon, no armor, only his body. But his veins still glowed faint from the light, power humming inside him. The soldiers saw it, and for the first time they hesitated. The leader snarled, "So, the machine has chosen you, a human, pathetic." He raised his weapon, glowing blade humming with deadly light. The human felt fear, but deeper than fear, something new. The power of the platform still inside him. Moving like fire through his chest, he clenched his fists, ready to fight. The girl whispered weakly from behind him, her words broken but clear enough. "Don't let them take me." The human's heart roared in his chest. He shouted back at the soldiers, his voice louder than he expected. "You'll have to kill me first." The chamber shook as the leader stepped forward. The soldiers raised their weapons, and in that moment, the human realized he was no longer running. This was where the real fight began. The chamber shook as the soldiers stepped forward. Their weapons glowed red, humming with deadly energy. The leader's eyes burned with hate as he pointed his blade at the human. "You should never have touched the machine," he growled. The human stood tall, though fear clawed at his chest. Behind him, the alien girl lay weak, her breath shallow but her eyes locked on him. He knew she depended on him, and that was enough to keep him standing. The first soldier rushed, blade raised high. The human moved without thinking. His hand shot out. glowing faint with the same strange light as the platform. When he struck, it was faster than he ever thought possible. The soldier was thrown back. Crashing into the stone wall, the others froze. Shocked by the sudden force, the human stared at his own hands. Trembling, he had never been strong. Never been a fighter, but now power burned inside him. Not his own, but alive within him. The leader snarled and gave a sharp command. 5 more soldiers attacked together, their blades slicing the air. The human dodged the first, blocked the second, but the third cut across his arm, burning his skin. He shouted in pain, stumbling back. The girl cried out weakly, her voice breaking. He gritted his teeth and struck back, fists glowing. The chamber erupted in light as he slammed his hand into the ground. Energy burst outward, knocking the soldiers off their feet. Stone cracked, dust rained from the ceiling. The machines around them flickered awake. Glowing brighter, the leader stepped forward, his blade humming with deeper power. "You think the machine chose you? Human," he spat. "No, you are nothing but a tool. And tools break." He swung, the blade cutting a line of fire through the air. The human barely dodged, the heat searing his face. The strike split the stone behind him like paper. Fear stabbed through him. He could not match this man. Not in skill, but when he looked back at the girl, her small hand reaching weakly toward him, he found strength again. The fight raged, every strike shaking the chamber. The soldiers circled, blades flashing, voices filled with fury. The human fought desperately, his body bruised, blood running down his arm. But each time he thought he would fall, the power surged again, guiding his steps, strengthening his blows. It was as if the platform itself whispered into his body, as if it refused to let him lose. The girl pressed her hand to the glowing platform. Light shot through her fingers. Into the carvings, the machines roared louder. Responding to her call, she cried out in pain but did not stop. The human saw it. She was giving him strength, feeding him the energy. Every strike he made carried her hope, her trust, her will. The leader saw it too, and his rage grew. He shouted at his men, "Kill her, now!" 2 soldiers broke from the fight. Charging toward the platform, the human's eyes widened. Heart hammering, he leapt faster than thought, blocking their path. He took a blade across his side, pain exploding, but he did not fall. He grabbed the soldier by the chest and slammed him into the ground. The other swung again, but the human twisted, using the glowing energy to knock the blade away. His fist struck true, the soldier collapsed, the girl gasped, tears running down her face as she watched. Her hands pressed harder into the platform. The chamber's light grew so bright it blinded the soldiers for a moment. But the leader pressed forward, unstoppable. His blade cut through the glow as if it was nothing. He struck the human hard, sending him crashing into the wall. Stone cracked around him, blood in his mouth. He groaned, struggling to rise. The leader marched toward the girl, blade raised high. "Enough of this," he growled. "This ends now." The girl shook her head, whispering broken words, her hand glowed brighter. The platform burning with power, but her body was failing, her strength nearly gone. The leader raised his weapon. The human roared, his body screaming in pain as he forced himself up. He lunged forward faster than ever. The glow inside him burst into flame, wrapping his arms and chest. He slammed into the leader, knocking him back. The blade scraped across the floor, sparks flying. The human pinned the leader, fists pounding, each strike shaking the ground. But the leader was strong, too strong. He grabbed the human's throat, lifting him high. The human gasped. Kicking, clawing, the glow flickered, fading. The leader sneered, "You are nothing." He slammed him to the ground. Raising the blade for the final strike, the girl screamed. Her voice breaking through the silence, light poured from the platform, wrapping around the human like chains of fire. The marks on his arms blazed brighter than ever before. The blade fell and stopped. Caught in glowing hands, the human stood, the wound in his side still bleeding, but his eyes glowing like fire. He pushed back, forcing the blade upward. The leader's face twisted in rage. The chamber roared with power, the machines vibrating, and with a final shout, the human struck. His fist slammed into the leader's chest. Light exploded outward, hurling the man across the chamber. Silence fell, the soldiers frozen, unsure. The leader groaned, his armor cracked, glowing with fire. The human staggered, barely standing. He turned to the girl, her body trembling, her eyes filled with tears. He knelt beside her, holding her hand. "It's okay," he whispered, though his voice shook. But deep inside he knew, this fight was not over. The soldiers still stood, the leader still breathed, and the truth of why the girl had chosen him still hid in the shadows of this ancient place. The chamber glowed brighter, the machines rising. Something else was awakening. Something neither the human nor the soldiers understood. The chamber shook like a heart ready to burst. The walls glowed brighter, veins of blue fire crawling across the stone. The machines stirred like giants waking from a long sleep, their voices rumbling deep. The human stood trembling, his arms burned and bleeding, his chest rising with broken breaths. The alien girl lay weak on the platform, her small hand still glowing faint. Her eyes clung to him, filled with pain and something else, something deeper. The soldiers stepped back, fear flickering across their faces. They had never seen power like this, never seen a human stand against their blades and live. But their leader, though wounded, rose again. His armor cracked, his chest burned, yet his rage burned hotter. He lifted his blade, voice echoing, "You think you are chosen, human, but you are nothing but a shadow." And shadows always fade. The human clenched his fists. Though his body screamed for rest, he stepped in front of the girl, blocking her with his broken frame. "I may be nothing," he whispered, voice raw, "but she chose me, and that means everything." The glow inside him flared again, weaker but steady like fire refusing to die. The leader charged, his blade cutting the air like thunder. The soldiers followed, their voices rising in a roar. The chamber erupted in chaos, metal striking stone. Light burning across the floor, the human fought with everything he had left. Every strike he made shook his bones. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. But still he stood, because behind him was the girl. And she had trusted him when no one else did. The girl pressed her trembling hands harder into the platform. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered broken words. The carvings under her glowed brighter, filling the chamber with blinding light. The machines roared louder as if answering her call. She screamed in pain, but she did not stop. The power rushed through her into him, binding them together. The human gasped as strength filled him again. His wounds still bled, but the fire in his chest burned stronger. He met the leader's strike head-on. Played against glowing fist, the shockwave split the air, the chamber shaking like it might collapse. The soldiers fell back, blinded by the light. The leader snarled, pressing harder, but for the first time, his eyes showed fear. The human roared. Forcing the blade upward, he struck with both hands, light pouring from his veins. The leader was thrown back, armor shattering, his blade snapping in two. The ground split beneath him, fire rushing through the cracks. The soldiers froze, their courage broken. The human staggered forward, ready to finish it, but the girl cried out, her voice breaking, "No, don't kill him." The human turned in shock, his chest heaving. The leader lay broken but alive. The girl's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the human. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "They are not only hunters. They are slaves too." The words struck like a blade to the heart. The soldiers froze, lowering their weapons. The leader's face twisted in rage and shame. The girl's voice shook as she forced the words out. "They serve a greater darkness, one that hunts all of us." The chamber roared louder. The machines shining so bright the shadows fled. The human realized the truth. This fight was only the beginning. This leader, these soldiers, they were not the true enemy. Something far older, far darker was coming. And she had chosen him not only to protect her, but to stand against that darkness. The human dropped his fists. Staring at the broken leader, the soldiers stepped back. Uncertain, afraid, the leader spat blood. His pride shattered, but in his eyes there was no more fire. Only silence. The chamber began to collapse. The machines shaking, the light cracking the stone. The girl's strength failed, her body falling limp. The human rushed to her, lifting her in his arms. Her breath was faint, her glow dim. She looked up at him with weak eyes and whispered one last truth. "You were always meant to find me." The ceiling broke apart, dust and fire raining down. The soldiers fled, their shouts fading into the tunnels. The leader vanished into the smoke. The human carried the girl through the collapsing ruins. Stone fell around them, fire chasing their steps. He did not stop, could not stop. Her heart beat weak against his chest, and with every step he swore he would not let it fade. At last they burst into the night. The ruins behind them crumbled, fire lighting the sky. The human collapsed to his knees. The girl still in his arms, she opened her eyes faintly, smiling though she could barely breathe. Her hand brushed his face, trembling. Tears burned in his eyes as he whispered, "You're safe now, but deep inside, he knew the truth. They had survived this night, but the greater darkness still waited. And this was only the first step in a war that would decide everything.